We own over $12 million worth of Airbnbs, and if we have to start our business over today in 2023, here are the first steps we take to buy our first property.
We are the Real Estate Robinsons.
Hey everyone, if this is your first time here, I'm Sarah.
I'm Tony.
And we're real estate investors who quit our day jobs by investing in short-term rentals, and we're here to show you how you can do the same. Over the last several years, the Airbnb space has kind of been like the gold rush. There were a few early adopters who made a killing, and then a bunch of other people flooded into the space, hoping to strike gold too.
And honestly, some did. We feel like we've done pretty well over the last couple of years with our Airbnb business, but the sad truth is there are a lot of people who rushed in and are barely breaking even, or even worse, or potentially losing money. But it's not because Airbnbs are dead.
And it's not because you can't make money with Airbnbs anymore. You see, the reason that so many of those hosts lost money was simply because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to correctly analyze deals, and instead of doing their homework, running the numbers, and using data to make their decisions like Tony does, they bought properties with emotion.
And that means they either bought because they liked that city that the property was in, or maybe they loved the idea of being able to vacation there, or maybe they had friends that bought there and were successful in that city, but not because that's what the numbers and their analysis told them to do. And even if they got lucky and bought a good deal, they still didn't make money because they didn't know how to set it up and how to manage it correctly. So they filled it with a bunch of, furniture from grandma's house and Facebook Marketplace, and they didn't give their guests—
Or cute furniture.
Or I'm the same for the people that aren't doing well, and they didn't give their guests the amenities or the experiences that they wanted. And when problems came up, these hosts didn't know how to respond. So basically, they set themselves up to fail from the beginning. So do we believe in the Airbnb bus? Yes. But only for the people who don't know what they're doing.
But if you're watching this video, that means you're someone who wants to invest in their education.
You're someone who wants to run their Airbnb like an actual business instead of like a hobby. And as long as you follow proven frameworks for running this business, you'll give yourself a really good shot at actually being successful. And in today's video, we're going to walk you through the 3 steps you need to take to buy your first Airbnb in 2023. Now, before we get into it, we want to share with you guys that we've officially launched our Airbnb coaching program. It's called Alpha Host Academy. For those of you who joined during our beta launch, you'll get a mix of one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and on-demand content. And our goal is to help you escape the rat race and replace your 9-to-5 in 5 years or less.
If you're interested in booking a discovery call to learn more, then head over to therealestaterobinsons.com/book-a-call. And if you're not yet an Airbnb host, sign up using our link in the description. You'll get a cash bonus for signing up, and we'll get a small cash bonus as well for referring you.
All right, so the very first step before you do anything else is to decide what strategy you want to use to get started. Because believe it or not, there are multiple ways you can build a business around Airbnbs. So let's break down some of the most popular strategies.
The first strategy we'll cover is owned Airbnbs. So this is the strategy we've used to build most of our portfolio. We have 26 active listings right now, and out of those 26, 25 are owned units.
So owning your Airbnb means that when you look at the deed for that property, it's your name or your business's name that's listed as the owner. So you own the property, you can do whatever you want with it. And there are a lot of benefits to come along with actually owning the property that you plan to Airbnb. Now, first, you have full control over your property. You can rehab it, make changes, make it worse, do whatever you want, add cameras. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it.
The second benefit is that you get appreciation. We bought our first Airbnb a few years ago, and it's almost doubled in value. So that equity adds to our net worth, and it gives us options with that property. We can refinance if rates get low enough, or we can sell it and use the proceeds to purchase something else.
And the third benefit of owning is that you get crazy good tax benefits. Now, we're not tax professionals, so still consult with your own CPA, but if you check a few boxes, you can legally put yourself in a position where you don't have to pay taxes on any of the profits from your Airbnbs. And if you really execute the strategy correctly, you can even reduce or completely eliminate the taxes you have to pay from your W-2 job.
The fourth benefit is that you have a fixed mortgage payment for 30 years. So you don't have to worry about the amount going up while you're operating your property. The downsides of owning your real estate is that it typically requires capital.
You need money to cover your down payment, your closing costs, any rehab or design work that needs to be done. Now, we've said this plenty of times on this channel, but just because this strategy requires capital, It doesn't necessarily need to be your own capital.
Repeat that one more time, Tony J.
Just because this strategy requires capital, it doesn't necessarily need to be your own capital.
Own capital.
Now, we've built the majority of our portfolio by raising money from other investors. They bring the capital, we manage the property, and it's a win-win situation for both of us.
The second strategy is rental arbitrage. So with this strategy, instead of you going out and buying your own property and listing it on Airbnb, you approach a landlord instead and rent their property out. But instead of moving in yourself, you turn around and rent that property out on Airbnb. And you get to keep the spread between what you're paying in rent and how much you're able to make by renting it out on Airbnb.
The benefits of rental arbitrage are that it takes a lot less capital to rent a unit than it does to buy one.
Right.
So instead of you putting down 10%, 15%, or 20%, maybe you're putting down like a security deposit on first and last month's rent. So the cost to acquire an arbitrage unit is significantly lower. Now, the downside of rental arbitrage is pretty much the opposite of owned units. You don't have full control over the unit because you're just renting it. Your costs for the units aren't fixed, and landlords are probably going to try and increase your rent every time your lease expires. Whereas with the unit that you own, right, if you own the property, you typically have long-term fixed debt, like a 30-year mortgage. So you know every single month for the next 30 years exactly how much your mortgage payments are going to be. And you know, I have some friends at Arbitrage, and they actually end up canceling some of their leases because the owners and landlords kind of get wind of how much money they're actually making on Airbnb, and they basically try and like gouge them on the price. So
haters.
Yeah, so it is a potential downside.
The other downside is that you miss out on all of the massive tax benefits. So you can't write off your income from arbitrage in the same way you can with a unit that you own. So you're stuck paying more in taxes. But again, if low cost and fast scaling is your priority, then this is a great option for you.
So we're actually working on our first arbitrage deal right now. Another investor that we know has a 12 unit in Dallas, Texas. And we're actually just sent him an email earlier today negotiating on what that arbitrage unit might be. And the units are like 700 square feet. We're only furnishing the interior, so we don't have to do anything to the outside. Like, how much do you think we'd spend to furnish 700 square feet? That's like...
Well, it's like our tiny homes, kind of.
A little bit bigger than a tiny home.
Girl, I don't know, you're putting me on the spot right now.
I mean, just like ballpark.
I don't know, what the hell?
I mean, you buy all the furniture.
I know, we haven't bought a tiny home in so long. You're like 20K? Is that, that's including the hot tub?
Yeah, that's like all the outside stuff. I think we could probably do it for like 7 grand.
7 grand? Are you serious?
Yeah, if it's a 2-bedroom.
And how many people would we sleep in there?
2, 4, maybe 4 to 6.
Oh, okay, so very similar to our tiny homes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, it's like in the bedrooms, we typically don't put televisions in the bedroom. It's just a nice bedroom set. We're not going to be doing like murals or anything like that. Yeah. We're not going to be buying anything for outside.
And it also depends on the type of like product we're trying to put together. You know, I feel like, I don't know much about this deal, but is it more like business-y?
It's definitely not as like vacation-y as like Joshua Tree.
We always try to really, you know, pour into all of our experiences, which are more costly, I think, versus just like a cookie cutter, just cute, cozy spot that I feel like that's our angle for this arbitrage deal. So that naturally will cut our costs down, you know?
Anyway, I budgeted 7K, so I'm hoping she can do it with 7K. But my point is that like 7K on an arbitrage unit, we might put down 10x that, you know, when we're buying one of our other properties. So the ability to really get strong returns from arbitrage units are there. So let's talk about the third strategy, which is co-hosting. When you co-host, you're basically managing Airbnbs for other investors. Now, one property in our portfolio is co-hosted. We actually took that on a couple months ago. And when it comes to the amount of money you need to get started, co-hosting beats both owning and rental arbitrage. You literally don't need any money with this strategy. Yeah. Because it's the owner who's purchasing the property. They're the ones who are spending the money to furnish the place or make any like rehabs or improvements. You're just coming in and running it for them. So if you're super limited on cash, co-hosting might be the absolute best option for you.
The downsides with co-hosting are that you're working with lots of different owners. So now, not only do you have to keep your guests happy, but you also have to keep your owners happy. So you're kind of getting beat up from both ends.
And beat up might be like an aggressive word, but you're just like, you have to keep
yeah, you have to report too, I feel like, you know, and it's, I feel like you're kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. It's, we have a lot of partners on most of our deals, and that's almost similar to like a co-hosting agreement.
Oh, for sure.
And it's taken us some time to get into a good rhythm with those partners around like, hey, what does the reporting look like?
Cadence look like?
What does the communication cadence look like? So I'm sure it can take some time on the co-hosting side. But we're actually going to be doing a series where we try and take our co-hosting business from 0 to 10K in 90 days. So we're going to be interviewing a bunch of folks we know in the co-hosting space. You guys will get some good information once we kick that off. All right, the other downside with co-hosting is you also don't get the tax benefits. Just like rental arbitrage, you don't own the property, so you're just kind of stepping in as a manager. So those are the 3 strategies. And again, it's important to identify which of those 3 strategies you want to go with, because that'll actually help dictate what you do in these next steps. Now, for the sake of this video, let's assume that you're not going to do arbitrage and you're not going to co-host, and that you plan to purchase your own Airbnb.
Before we move on to the next step, there's something important that we want to call out. So think of this as step 1.5. You see, one of the mistakes we made early on in growing our Airbnb business was not having the right business bank to run all of our money through. And believe it or not, choosing the wrong bank can cause you tons of headache and extra work.
One of the challenges we ran into early on was finding the right way to pay our cleaners and our handyman and other vendors. We tried using Venmo and Zelle, but the issues with those payment options is that there's a cap on how much money you can send every single week.
And pretty low caps too, yeah.
And because we had so many properties, we kept hitting that weekly cap. So our cleaners would need to be paid, and we have to say, hey, can we actually pay you next week?
Worst.
Yeah, it was like, and we had 3 Venmo profiles. We had mine, Sarah's, and Omi's, and we were capping out on all of them on a weekly basis.
That's their paycheck.
Yeah, that's their paycheck.
They don't care. That's their livelihood.
So no cleaners want to hear that I can't pay you this week and it'll have to be next week. The other downside with Venmo was that it made it super hard for bookkeeping. Every time we sent a payment, we'd have to take a screenshot of the Venmo transaction and then email that screenshot to our bookkeeper. And unfortunately, I'm not going to point fingers here, but we weren't perfect with that process. So it felt like we were always digging through our Venmo transactions, trying to remember why we spent $47 to ABC Company 6 months ago.
It was only, not me.
It was both of them. But anyway, with Relay, you can add all of your vendors as payees inside of your account, like inside of your Relay account. And from there, Relay allows you to send same-day ACH payments to anyone. And it basically works like Venmo does.
Literally like Venmo.
Yeah, whoever you add, it's sent a secure link where they can enter their own payment details, and you're able to send them a payment. And as long as that payment is issued before noon Eastern, it processes the exact same day.
The other reason the same day ACH transfers are super cool is because you're able to add a note to every payment, which is really important to not pointing fingers for this guy. So what we do is we add the reason for the payment in the note section. Now, when our bookkeeper pulls all of our transactions at the end of the month, she's then able to go through and see all of these notes. So no more taking screenshots of the Venmo transactions that I'm getting accused of not doing.
Yeah, it all happens automatically within the app.
Yeah.
Now,
so I love the Relay because of this.
We all love them because of that. It saved our marriage. So if your marriage is on the rocks, get a Relay account. Another reason that we love using Relay, they recently rolled out the ability to set up auto transfer rules. Now, guys, we've got an entire video on how we manage cash flow within our business. So we'll link to that in the description. And I really encourage all of you guys to go and watch that video. But as a quick run through, we have multiple accounts for every single property and several at kind of the business level. So each property has 2 accounts. One account is an OpEx account or operating expense account. And this account is where all the money flows in and all of the expenses flow out. And then each property also has a reserve account. And we use a reserve account. This is where we kind of stash money away for a rainy day. So if there's repairs or big things we need to cover, we'll use the reserve account. And then at a business level, we have a profit hold account, a tax hold account, and an owner's pay account, and a team member's pay account. And then every month on the 10th and the 25th, we transfer money from the OpEx account and we fill up all the other accounts. So you might leave, 50% of our cash in the OpEx account, then put 5% into the reserves, and then split the rest of that money between those other accounts. Now, this strategy for having multiple bank accounts comes from the book called Profit First. And I highly recommend that each of you check that book out. It's by a guy named Mike Michalowicz. It's a fantastic book. And again, we'll put a link to that in the description so you can also check out the book and our other video. But the reason that Relay is so powerful is because it allows you to automatically complete these transfers every single month. All you have to do is tell Relay what percentages you want to allocate across your accounts, and then every month, automatically on whatever dates you choose, it'll run those transfers for you. Now, this may not seem like a big deal at first glance, but trust me, it becomes super time consuming to manually complete all of those transfers, and to be able to set it up once and then see it run every single month on its own is absolutely amazing. And I think my hair might even be growing back out of excitement.
And not only is your hair gonna grow back, but it makes you feel like a real business, you know? Like it's not a hobby anymore, it's not just a side gig, like automatically making these kind of payments and stuff. It's like truly setting your Airbnb up like a true business, which is what we're here trying to teach you to do. The last reason Relay is such an amazing business bank is because it allows you to have up to 30 checking accounts for each business you have. So remember, we have 2 checking accounts for every single property. So we need lots of accounts opened, and most other business banks would cap you at like 3 or 4 or 5 accounts. So you literally can't set up your accounts the right way when you're limited to such a small number.
The last reason we love Relay, and I'll try not to sound too much like a nerd here, but Relay has a direct API connection to QuickBooks. So in layman's terms, this means that instead of using a third party where the information goes from Relay to some third party and then to QuickBooks, the data goes directly from Relay to QuickBooks. And the reason this is so helpful is because sometimes those third-party connections break. We had an issue before using Relay where none of our banking data was making it into QuickBooks. So our bookkeeper had to manually create every single transaction inside of QuickBooks instead of it all showing up automatically how it should have. So it costs us more money because our bookkeeper charges by the hour, and there's a chance of human error because you're importing so much data. So I know, kind of nerdy, but I promise
you lost me, girl.
I promise it's a really important thing to have. So if you want to sign up for Relay, use the link in our description or head over to relayfi.com/TheRealEstateRobinsons. All right, so now that you've got your strategy nailed down, it's time for step number 2, and that's choosing your market. Now, it's important that you start with your strategy before you choose your market because some markets work better with certain strategies. Now, for example, let's say you want to do rental arbitrage. Arbitrage works great in urban and suburban settings. Remember, we're looking for arbitrage units in Dallas. These are places where you see a high number of landlords who typically rent to long-term tenants, so those landlords are probably more open to the idea of subletting their units, especially if they can get a little bit more than what they could get from a typical long-term tenant. Now, rental arbitrage would not work as well in a vacation destination. Reason being, most people who own properties in vacation destinations are already using them themselves as short-term rentals. So why would they lease it out to you for rental arbitrage when they could probably just do it themselves? The type of landlords you see in urban and suburban places are different than what you see in vacation destinations.
So most of the people that we know who are heavy into arbitrage are focusing on big metros or suburban areas that surround those metros. Now, if you choose to co-host, you can do that in almost any market. We personally co-host in vacation markets, but we know other people who co-host in big cities, and so on. So you can really apply this strategy to any market.
And obviously owning units can be done in almost any market as well. It doesn't really matter as long as you run your numbers right where you can do it anywhere. So now let's talk about what you need to do to help you actually choose the market. And to help with that, let's go over the 3 Ps of market selection. Now, the 3 Ps of market selection is a framework that we've developed that helps you quickly decide if a market is worth investing in or not. You can think of the 3 Ps as boxes you want to check, and the goal is to check all 3 boxes. So let's break down each of these 3 Ps.
So the first P stands for policies. You want to make sure that you understand the laws or rules around Airbnbs in the city before you decide to buy the property. One of the biggest mistakes you can make in your Airbnb business is buying in a city that doesn't legally allow for Airbnbs, or in a city that severely limits the ways that Airbnbs can operate.
To check this box, you want to get in contact with the city and try and get your hands on a copy of the document that contains their laws or ordinances about Airbnbs. Now, usually you can find this online, but depending on the size of the city and the sophistication of the city, you might have to call or even visit in person. But once you get your hands on that document, you want to read it forwards and backwards and upside down and inside out and really understand all of the nuances of that law, because it is the law. And if you break it, you can get yourself in hot water.
It's a hot mess, girl. Follow the rules. We've met Airbnb hosts in Maui, and when you break the Airbnb laws in Maui, they fine you. And not just a small fine, like a big fine.
We know a host that was running their Airbnb without a permit, and once the city found out, they charged charge that person $10,000 upfront and then $1,000 a day for each day the listing was still up.
Like, I would literally go burn the house out. I would not know what to do.
She's kidding. If our insurance providers are listening, we would not do it. So anyway, play by the rules. The second P stands for popularity. Now, when we talk about popularity, we're really looking at two things. First, we're looking at how many travelers are visiting that place on an annual basis. Are there some big attractions that bring people in on a consistent basis? But for example, we like to invest in our national parks. The parks draw millions and millions of people in every single year, and that creates a consistent flow of people who might potentially want to book our property. So you want to look for data on travel and visitation to that area. The second thing we're checking for on the popularity side is the number of listings that are active in that area. Usually for us to consider a market, we'd like to see at least a few hundred listings. And the reason we like that number is because anything less than a few hundred means you might have a hard time finding cleaners and handymen to service your property. But if there, I'd say, are at least 400 or 500 listings in a city, there's a good chance that there are cleaners and handymen who live in that area who are already super familiar with Airbnbs and are probably making a full-time living working on Airbnb.
Oh, sure. If you find yourself looking at a city that has like 75 listings, then you're probably going to struggle to find the people that you really need to clean your property and service your property when things break.
The third P is profitability. Now, my basic rule of thumb is that your revenue should be at least 20% of your purchase price. So if you buy a house for $100,000, it should generate at least $20,000 in revenue. We found that if you can roughly stick to those numbers, then you'll have a decent shot at getting a healthy cash on cash return. But it is a rule of thumb, not a law, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And obviously we're at a time where interest rates are climbing, so if they skyrocket, then 20% might not be enough. But it's a decent starting point.
So those are the 3 P's of market selection, and you can use that to help you narrow down your search. As you're looking for cities, keep this in mind and in your back pocket.
Now, one of the changes that we've seen in 2023 is that it's getting harder to get amazing returns in most of these big, well-known markets for Airbnbs. Now, it doesn't mean that there's no demand in those markets, and it doesn't mean that you can't be profitable in those markets, but it does mean that getting super juicy 50, 60, 90% cash on cash returns is going to be much harder than it was before. Like, we bought our first Airbnb in Tennessee for $590,000. Today, that same cabin is worth over $1 million.
Woo!
So it's almost doubled in value, but I can tell you that our revenue hasn't doubled in that same time frame. So with higher prices and higher interest rates, cash on cash returns are getting squeezed in some of these big markets. Because of this, we've personally started looking in what are called secondary and tertiary markets. Basically, these are smaller cities that may not be known nationally like the Smoky Mountains, but are really popular vacation spots for people in that part of the country. And almost every single state has a pocket where people go to vacation. So do some research and find out where people are vacationing in that state. Now, the benefit of going with these smaller cities is that first, you can oftentimes pay less than what you have to pay in these bigger cities. And second, you can get a better cash on cash return, which means your money is going to work harder for you.
So do a Google search for something like hidden travel gems in the United States and see what pops up. Before we keep moving, we'd really appreciate if you guys could give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. Every new subscriber really does mean a lot to us, and we have a big goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe, turn on your notifications, tell a friend. And we've also got a totally free download for all of our subscribers. If you head over to therealestaterobinsons.com/calculator, we've put together a free tool that helps you analyze properties that you're considering purchasing as a short-term rental.
Also, our next in-person event is coming up. We're bringing back our short-term rental ride-along. It's happening July 14th through the 15th in Southern California. At this event, you get to spend a day and a half with the two of us. We basically rent a big charter bus and we're driving around the city of Joshua Tree together for about 12 hours. You'll get to see all of our properties in person, meet members of our team, and see how we run our portfolio of 30 properties. Space for this event is super limited. There's only 40 spots open and spots are filling up fast. So if you'd like to learn more, head over to strridealong.com.
Super unique opportunity, so you guys do not want to miss out. All right, so once you've chosen your strategy and identified your market, your next step is to start analyzing deals. Now, we'll show you in a few moments what data you need to analyze. It's important for you to understand something first.
AirDNA recently came out with a report that said RevPAR, which is basically like a way to measure revenue, is down 3.7% year over year in the United States. That's not necessarily a cause for concern. 2021 and 2022 were anomalies. They were just really weird times for travel. We're seeing 2023 as the year that both the number of new listings listings start to slow down and that the revenue made by those listings starts to stabilize. So when it comes to analyzing deals, it also means that you can't necessarily use 2022's revenue to project how your property will do in 2023 and beyond. Look at the data for your specific market and try and gauge whether your market is up or down year over year. And if you're down, then use that information to help you adjust your numbers down for your projections. For example, if the market you're looking at is down 10% so far in 2023 compared to 2022, then when you analyze your deals, you should be shaving off 10% at least to make sure you're accounting for that change. What you don't want to do is see that your market is down 10%, but still use last year's numbers, right? You're gonna set yourself up for failure that way. All right, so let's get into how to actually analyze a property as an Airbnb. When you wanna analyze a property, you need 3 pieces of information. You need your average daily rates, your occupancy, and your cleaning fees. Now, we've got a 20-minute video all about how to analyze properties as Airbnb, so I'll link to that in the description, but I'll give you the basic formula here. First, you take your projected occupancy and you multiply that by 365 days. This tells you how many days out of the year your property will be occupied. Second, you take the number of days you'll be occupied and you multiply that to your average daily rate. This then gives you the baseline for the amount of revenue that you'll earn. Third, you need to add in the amount of money that you'll earn from your cleaning fees. Once you add all of that up, you'll have your total projected income for that property. Now, you'll still need to project your expenses, but that's a little bit more straightforward. You're just estimating things like your mortgage payments, insurance, taxes, and utilities. And to calculate your actual cash on cash return, you subtract your expenses from your revenue, which gives you your profit, and then you divide your profits by the amount of money you invested to purchase that property. Now, the last step of analyzing deals is to spend some time researching your competition. You want to try and identify things like what parts of the town are most popular for Airbnbs, what kind of design styles seem to work really well in the city, what kind of amenities are popular in this market. Are most people traveling in small groups as couples, or are they traveling in big groups where there's like the parents and the kids and the grandparents and the cousins? All of that information helps you better understand what you need to include in your own property. Now, once you've done that, your analysis is complete, and from there, it's simple as submitting offers, or at least enough offers until you finally get a yes. So guys, we hope that this breakdown of how to buy your first Airbnb in 2023 was helpful. Again, we've got other videos that kind of go in depth on the topics we just kind of glossed over or briefly talked about today. We'll link to those in the description. But if you guys aren't yet, please do follow us on Instagram. I'm at Tony J. Robinson.
I'm at Sarah Rad Robinson. And on TikTok, we are at The Real Estate Robinsons.
Now, before we let you guys go, just remember we officially launched our Airbnb coaching program. And if you guys want to learn from me and Sarah, we're really hands-on with our community. We host at least one of the group coaching calls every single week. You get one-on-one coaching. We have an amazing community. Head over to therealestaterobinsons.com/book a call, and going through that link will get you in touch with someone from our team who will walk you through everything we have to offer. Again, that's therealestaterobinsons.com/book a call. That's it for today, guys. I'm Tony.
I'm Sarah.
And we are
The Real Estate Robinsons.